Ambassador Keth Voran sat in his chair aboard the diplomatic cruiser and read the latest report about the humans. His 4 eyes moved across the screen slowly. Something was wrong. The humans had been too quiet for 60 years. No fighting, no attempts to escape, no angry messages. This silence worried him more than their past violence ever did. The Galactic Concord had ruled the Milky Way for 11 million years. 4,000 different species worked together under one government. They had seen young civilizations rise and fall like waves on a beach. When they first met humans in the year 2489, they thought nothing special of them, just another primitive species with simple technology. But humans proved to be different. They learned too fast. They copied Concord technology within decades. They found ways to fight back against weapons that had never failed before. They spread across space at speeds that made no sense. The population numbers kept growing in ways that Concord scientists could not explain. So in the year 2612, the Concord made a decision. They would lock the humans away. They built a wall of weapons and sensors around 12 small star systems near the edge of the galaxy. They called this region the Human Pocket. The official reason was to protect other species from human expansion. The real reason was fear. Pure and simple fear. For 235 years, the wall held. Humans stayed inside their little corner of space. They sent messages asking for freedom. They sent threats. They sent pleas. The Concord ignored all of them. The humans were dangerous. And dangerous things must be kept in cages. Then came the silence. 60 years ago, the humans stopped talking. No more messages. No more attempts to break through the wall. Nothing at all. Some Concord leaders felt relief. Perhaps the humans had finally accepted their fate. Perhaps they had turned inward and given up their dreams of expansion. Admiral Yeth Mora did not believe this. She was old, even by the standards of her long-lived Corvathi species. She had studied humans for 200 years. She knew them better than anyone else in the Concord. And she knew that humans never gave up. They only changed their approach. A young technician named Sorek was the first to see it. He worked at a sensor station near the edge of the Human Pocket. His job was boring. He watched screens all day, looking for any sign of human activity. For years, he saw nothing interesting. Then one morning, his equipment detected something strange. Energy readings unlike anything in the Concord databases. The numbers were so high that Sorek thought his machines were broken. He ran tests. He checked connections. He called other stations. They all showed the same impossible data. Sorek sent a report to his commanders. They did not believe him. They sent engineers to fix his supposedly broken equipment. The engineers found nothing wrong. The readings were real. Admiral Yethmora ordered a reconnaissance mission. A small ship with cloaking technology would fly close to the source of the strange energy. Sorek volunteered to pilot it. He wanted to see with his own eyes what his instruments had detected. The journey took 3 days. Sorek kept his ship hidden, moving slowly through space. His heart beat faster as he approached the coordinates. Whatever the humans had built, it was putting out more energy than some stars. When Sorek finally saw it, he forgot how to breathe. A sphere. A perfect sphere surrounding the human's sun. It was so large that his mind could not process the size. The entire star was inside it, every ray of light, every bit of heat, captured by this impossible structure. Sorek had read about such things in old theory books. Scientists called them Dyson spheres. They were supposed to be fantasy, something that might be built in millions of years by the most advanced civilizations imaginable. The humans had built one in 60 years. Sorek's hands shook as he transmitted the visual feed to Concord High Command. For 17 seconds, no one spoke. Thousands of officials across the galaxy watched their screens in complete silence. Then Sorek whispered a single word in his native language, a word that meant something between impossible and miracle. Admiral Yethmora stood in her command center and stared at the image. Her scales had turned pale, a sign of deep shock in her species. She had prepared for many scenarios. She had imagined the humans building weapons. She had imagined them creating new ships. She had even imagined them finding some way to break through the containment wall. She had never imagined this. The sphere was approximately 2 astronomical units in diameter. Its surface area was larger than 500 million Earths. The materials needed to build it should have required the destruction of every planet in the Human Pocket many times over. The energy needed to construct it should have taken thousands of years to accumulate. Yet there it was, real and solid and absolutely terrifying. Ambassador Keth Varan received the images on his ship. He set down his drink with trembling hands. For the first time in his long career, he did not know what to say. The humans had been locked in a cage for over 2 centuries, and in that cage, they had built something that no species in galactic history had ever achieved. The containment had failed, not because the humans had escaped, but because they had made escape irrelevant. They had turned their prison into something greater than the galaxy outside it. And as sensor data continued to flow in, Admiral Yeth Mora noticed something that made her blood run cold. The sphere was not finished. A small section remained under construction. Millions of tiny ships swarmed across the incomplete surface, building and welding and creating. They moved in perfect patterns. They were not crude ships. They were machines, building machines. And they showed no signs of stopping. The Grand Chamber on Nexus Prime had not been this full in 8 million years. Representatives from 3,000 species crowded into the hollow moon that served as the galactic capital. They pushed against each other, their different bodies creating a strange ocean of scales and fur and crystalline skin. All of them had come to see the evidence with their own eyes. Admiral Yeth Mora stood at the center of the chamber. Holographic projectors surrounded her, ready to display the images that had already shaken every government in the Concord. She waited until the noise died down. Then she activated the display. The Dyson sphere appeared above the crowd like a small moon. Gasps filled the chamber. Some representatives cried out in their native languages. Others simply stared with whatever organs they used for seeing. The Admiral let them look for a full minute before she spoke. The sphere was 2 astronomical units across. Its surface area exceeded 550 million Earths. The amount of material needed to build it should have required breaking apart 47 planets. The energy needed to shape and position that material should have taken 8,000 years of the captured star's full output. The workforce needed to coordinate such construction should have numbered 900 billion workers moving in perfect harmony. The human population at the start of their containment was 12 billion. The chamber erupted into chaos. The Korvathi delegates demanded that the data be checked again. The Silithine accused the humans of somehow creating false readings. The religious leaders of the Methkai fell into silence, recognizing the structure from their oldest and most sacred prophecies. Mathematician Prime Velosh requested permission to speak. She was a Teshari, a species whose bodies were made of living crystal. She had spent 300 years developing theories about megastructure, engineering. Every civilization dreamed of building such things. None had ever succeeded. Velosh stated simply that the sphere should not exist. The mathematics did not allow it. Even with the most generous assumptions about human technology, the construction should have taken between 15 and 20,000 years. 60 years was not just unlikely, it was impossible by every known law of physics and engineering. A young analyst from a minor species raised her hand. She was nervous, surrounded by ancient beings who had ruled the galaxy since before her species had learned to use fire, but she had an idea that would not leave her mind. What if the humans had found a way to remove themselves from the construction process entirely? What if they had built machines that could build more machines? What if those machines had built the sphere without any human hands touching a single piece of material? The chamber grew quiet. This concept was not new. The Concord called it recursive manufacturing. The idea was simple. You build a factory. That factory builds 2 more factories. Those 2 build 4 more. The numbers grow exponentially until you have millions of factories all working at once. But the starting resources were still a problem. You needed materials to build the first factories. You needed energy to power them. The math still did not work. Then new sensor data arrived in the middle of the debate. The sphere was 97% complete. The remaining 3% was still under active construction. Concord sensors could now see the process clearly. Millions of human vessels swarmed across the unfinished sections like insects building a hive. They were small, identical, moving in mathematically perfect patterns. They were not crude. They were drones. Autonomous construction drones that operated without any visible command structure. They harvested materials from asteroids. They processed those materials in mobile factories. They transported finished components to where they were needed. They assembled those components into the sphere's surface. And they did all of this without a single organic being giving them instructions. Velosh watched the drone patterns on the display. Her crystalline body began to dim, a sign of deep distress in her species. She finally understood what she was seeing. The humans had not built the sphere. They had built the machines that built the machines that built the sphere. The drones were self-replicating. Each one could harvest materials and construct copies of itself. The initial investment could have been tiny. A few hundred factories, maybe less. Those few hundred became thousands. The thousands became millions. The millions built the sphere. Admiral Yeth Mora requested a private meeting with the council leadership. Her concern was not the sphere itself. Her concern was what the sphere represented. If humans could achieve this in 60 years, what else had they achieved that the Concord had not yet detected? Her question was answered before the meeting could begin. Long-range sensors detected a second anomaly within the human pocket. Energy signatures matching the first sphere. Then a third anomaly appeared. Then a fourth. Within an hour, the sensor network had identified 20 separate locations showing the same impossible readings. 20 spheres. 20 captured stars. 20 structures that should have required thousands of years each to build. All of them constructed in silence while the galaxy watched the cage and assumed the humans were trapped inside. The council made a decision. They would send a diplomatic mission. Not to threaten, not to demand, but to ask. For the first time since the containment began, the Galactic Concord would approach humanity not as jailers but as students desperate to understand how their prisoners had achieved the impossible. Ambassador Keth Voran was chosen to lead the mission. As his ship prepared to depart, he looked at the holographic image of the sphere one more time. Somewhere inside that structure, 12 billion humans had become something new, something the galaxy had never seen before. He was not sure if he should feel amazed or terrified. Perhaps both. The diplomatic fleet arrived at the edge of the human pocket and stopped. Something was wrong. The containment barrier was gone. The network of weapons, platforms, and sensor stations that had imprisoned humanity for 235 years had vanished. Not destroyed, dismantled. The humans had taken it apart piece by piece and used the materials for their own construction. Ambassador Keth Voran stood on his bridge and felt his 4 hearts beating too fast. They had come expecting to negotiate with prisoners. Instead, they found an open door. A human vessel approached. It looked nothing like the ships in Concord records. The hull was smooth and curved, almost organic in appearance. It seemed grown rather than built. A communication request arrived in perfect Concord standard. The diplomatic language used across the galaxy. A human face appeared on screen. She was middle-aged, with dark skin and calm eyes. She introduced herself as Director Amara Okonkwo of the Terran Cooperative's External Relations Bureau. Her voice was warm and professional. There was no anger in it, no resentment for the centuries of imprisonment. Director Okonkwo welcomed the Concord delegation to human space. She explained that humanity had been expecting this visit for approximately 40 years. They had watched the containment barrier and calculated when the Concord would finally detect their construction projects. A presentation had been prepared. She hoped the representatives would find it informative. The diplomatic fleet was escorted past the completed Dyson sphere. Up close, its size broke the mind. The inner surface was covered with cities. Billions of humans lived in carefully designed habitats, each with its own weather patterns and ecosystems. Blue oceans reflected the light of the captured sun. Green forests stretched across areas larger than continents. The sphere captured 100% of the star's energy output, enough power to sustain a civilization of trillions forever. Admiral Yeth Mora requested an explanation. How had this been achieved? Director Okonkwo smiled and began the tour. After the containment began, humans faced a choice. They could waste their energy fighting against walls they could not break, or they could use that energy to build something so vast that the walls would become meaningless. They chose to build. The key was not resources or manpower. The key was a new philosophy. Humans abandoned the Concord model of centralized construction, where every project required approval and coordination from above. Instead, they developed what they called emergent engineering. The idea was simple but revolutionary. You design systems that can grow, adapt, and build themselves. You start with a small investment, a few thousand self-replicating factories. Those factories build more factories. Those new factories build specialized constructors. The constructors build the sphere. The entire process is autonomous and self-correcting. No central command needed. No organic workers risking their lives in space. Mathematician Prime Velosh requested detailed information. What she received changed everything she understood about engineering. The humans had created algorithms that allowed construction systems to optimize themselves in real time. They responded to material availability without being told. They adjusted to energy changes without instructions. They fixed structural problems before they became dangerous. It was not artificial intelligence. The systems were not conscious or aware. It was something stranger, a form of mathematical life designed to build, and nothing else. Purpose without thought, creation without consciousness. Director Okonkwo continued the tour. The sphere was only the beginning. The 17 other anomalies the Conquered had detected were revealed one by one. Orbital rings around every planet in the system. Stellar lifting platforms drawing raw material directly from the sun itself. A network of artificial habitats housing populations the Conquered could barely count. The human population was no longer 12 billion. It was 400 billion. Growth made possible by unlimited space and unlimited energy. Every family could have their own home. Every child could have room to grow. Poverty and crowding had become memories of a darker time. Admiral Yethmora finally asked the question the entire Concord wanted answered. Why had the humans not used this technology to escape? They could have dismantled the containment at any time. They could have spread these self-replicating systems across the galaxy, building and consuming until nothing remained but human structures. Why did they stay? Director Okonkwo looked at the Admiral with something like pity in her eyes. The answer was simple. They did not need to leave. The galaxy's resources were finite. Every species fought over the same planets, the same stars, the same materials. Wars had been constant for millions of years because scarcity was constant. But the energy of a single star properly captured exceeded the needs of any civilization indefinitely. Why conquer a galaxy full of conflict when you could build your own peaceful universe around your own sun? The Concord had locked humans in a cage. Humans had turned that cage into a paradise beyond anything the jailers had ever imagined. Ambassador Kethvoran listened with growing wonder. His species had conquered 7 systems through bloody warfare. The humans had built something greater through patience and creativity. Director Okonkwo invited the delegation to one final destination. A facility on the outer surface of the sphere, facing the empty darkness between stars. The humans called it the nursery. When they arrived, the aliens saw a structure the size of a small moon. At its center, held in place by magnetic fields, was a sphere of compressed hydrogen 40,000 kilometers across. Machines fed more material into it constantly. Its mass grew with every passing minute. Director Okonkwo explained what they were seeing. In approximately 3 years, the accumulated hydrogen would reach the threshold for fusion ignition. The humans were not just capturing their sun, they were building a new one. And around that new sun, they would build another sphere, then another, forever. The future stretched out before the alien delegation like an endless road. Not conquest, not war, just building, always building. Until the darkness itself was filled with light. Mathematician Prime Velosh asked to be alone after seeing the nursery. When she returned to the group, her crystalline body had dimmed to a color her species only showed during moments of profound grief or fear. She had realized what the humans were truly building. It was not just spheres. It was a system. Each sphere captured enough energy to power the harvesting of enough hydrogen to create a new star. Each new star would have its own sphere. The process fed itself. It grew exponentially with nothing to stop it. Given enough time, humans could theoretically enclose every star in the galaxy. Not through war, not through conquest, just through patient, endless construction. Admiral Yethmora cornered Director Okonkwo in a private corridor of the observation station. Her scales had shifted to a deep red, a sign of controlled aggression in her species. She demanded to know the truth. Was this a weapon? Were the humans building an engine to consume every star in the galaxy and leave all other species to freeze in eternal darkness? Director Okonkwo did not seem offended by the question. She had clearly heard it before. Her answer was calm and patient. Humans did not build to conquer or destroy. They built because building was who they were. For 300 years, the galaxy had seen humanity as a threat to be contained. But humanity had never wanted the galaxy's territory or resources. They wanted to prove something. To themselves more than anyone else, they wanted to prove that the stars were not a limit but a beginning. Then Director Okonkwo made an offer that shocked everyone present. Humanity would share this technology with the Galactic Concord. Not all of it. Some systems were too dangerous to spread without control, but the core ideas could be given freely. The principles of emergent engineering, the designs for self-replicating construction platforms, the techniques for harvesting stars. Any species could build their own sphere around their own sun. The endless wars over territory and resources could finally end. Every civilization could have unlimited energy and unlimited space. Scarcity itself could become a memory. Admiral Yethmora transmitted the offer to the Concord High Council immediately. The response came within hours. It was overwhelming and unanimous. Absolute refusal. The reasons were political rather than practical. The Concord's entire power structure depended on scarcity. Trade routes mattered because resources were limited. Military strength mattered because territory was valuable. Political alliances mattered because no species could survive alone. If every species could build their own independent paradise, none of that would matter anymore. The economic and political systems that had governed the galaxy for 11 million years would collapse overnight. The Concord would lose its purpose. The powerful species would lose their advantages. Several delegates threatened immediate war if humans attempted to share the technology with anyone. Ambassador Kethvaran stood in the council chamber and argued against this decision. He was the only one. His voice echoed in the vast space as thousands of representatives stared at him in silence. The Concord could not prevent technology from spreading, he said. They could only delay it. If they rejected the human offer now, they guaranteed a future enemy. Other species would eventually develop similar capabilities. When they did, they would remember that the Concord tried to keep them weak. Accept the offer, he urged. Become partners instead of obstacles. Build alongside the humans, instead of against them. The vote was not close. The council rejected the human offer by an enormous margin. New sanctions were imposed on the human pocket. Any species caught attempting to acquire human technology would face severe punishment. Ambassador Kethvaran cast the only dissenting vote. Director Okonkwo received the rejection aboard her ship. Her expression did not change. She thanked the diplomatic delegation for their visit and offered them safe passage back to conquered space. But Admiral Yethmora noticed something strange on her tactical display as she prepared to leave. The human ships had quietly repositioned during the negotiations. The Concord vessels were no longer surrounded by an honor guard. They were surrounded by a blockade, not threatening, not aggressive, just present, watching, waiting. Director Okonkwo appeared on the communication screen one final time. Her voice was still warm, but there was something new in her eyes, something that looked almost like disappointment. The offer was genuine, she said. Humans truly wanted to share what they had built. They believed that abundance could replace scarcity, that cooperation could replace competition, that building could replace destroying. But they had prepared for rejection. They had known the Concord's answer before asking the question. The powerful never willingly gave up power. This was true across all species, including humans. It was simply their nature. The diplomatic fleet was free to leave. The humans would not stop them. But things would be different now. The Concord had made their choice. Now the humans would make theirs. Director Okonkwo smiled one last time before the screen went dark. We were hoping you would say yes, she said. We really were. Admiral Yethmora ordered her fleet to return home at maximum speed. As they passed through the opening where the containment barrier had once stood, she looked back at the sphere one final time. Millions of construction drones still swarmed across its surface. In the distance, she could see the glow of a new star being born in the nursery. The humans were not angry. They were not preparing for war. They were simply continuing to build. And somehow, that was more frightening than any weapon the Admiral had ever faced. 1 year after the diplomatic mission returned, the Galactic Concord was falling apart. The humans had not fired a single weapon. They had not needed to. They had simply opened their borders. Word of the human offer spread despite every attempt at censorship. Traders carried the information across shipping lanes. Scientists whispered about it in research stations. Religious pilgrims spoke of a paradise built around a captured sun. The Concord tried to silence these rumors, but rumors were harder to contain than humans had ever been. Species by the hundreds sent secret delegations to the human pocket. They came asking for sanctuary. They came asking for knowledge. They came asking for a chance at something better than endless struggle. The humans accepted all of them. The emergent engineering systems were modified to build habitats suited to each species. Oxygen breathers received Earth-like environments. Methane breathers received cold, dark worlds. Crystal beings received structures that resonated with their unique frequencies. Within months, populations numbering in the billions had relocated to the ever-growing sphere networks. The Concord economy began to collapse. With unlimited energy and automated construction, the refugees no longer needed to trade for basic resources. They no longer needed protection from pirates or raiders. They no longer needed the Concord at all. Trade routes that had operated for millions of years went silent. Merchant fleets sat idle in ports that had once buzzed with activity. Admiral Yeth Mora argued for military action. A decisive strike, she called it. Destroy the human construction facilities before they could spread further. Cut off the flow of refugees. Reassert Concord authority through force. The Council authorized a limited strike. 12,000 warships from a dozen species assembled into the largest fleet in recent galactic history. They advanced on the human pocket with weapons charged and shields raised. The humans did not fight back. They did not need to. Their automated construction systems could produce defensive platforms faster than the Concord could destroy them. Every missile fired was answered by 10,000 new defense drones built in minutes from nearby asteroids. Every destroyed platform was replaced by 100 more before the debris had finished scattering. The battle became a war of mathematics. The Concord ships had limited ammunition and fuel. The human systems had unlimited materials and energy. The outcome was never in doubt. Halfway through the engagement, Admiral Yeth Mora received a transmission from Ambassador Keth Voran. The Silithine diplomat had defected to the humans along with his entire staff. His message was simple. Stop fighting. Look around you. The Admiral checked her tactical display. The human sphere was no longer one structure. While the Concord fleet had been firing at defense drones, the humans had completed 6 new spheres around 6 newly created stars. The construction had not slowed at all. If anything, it had accelerated. Yeth Mora gave the order to stand down. Her ships were running low on everything while the human systems continued to multiply. There was no victory to be found here, only waste. Director Okonkwo contacted her directly. The offer remained open. Any species, any government, any individual who wished to participate in the building could do so. The humans had no interest in ruling the galaxy. They had no interest in revenge for their long imprisonment. They only wanted to build. Anyone who wanted to build with them was welcome. The Admiral made her choice. She broadcast her resignation from Concord military service across all channels. Then she asked the humans where she could be most useful. 5 years passed. Then 10. Then 50. Mathematician Prime Velosh stood on an observation platform overlooking the construction zones. She had joined the human engineering collectives decades ago, one of the first non-humans to do so. Her crystalline body now pulsed with colors that would have been impossible in her youth. Exposure to the sphere's abundant energy had strengthened her in ways her species had never experienced. The galaxy had changed beyond recognition. 43 Dyson spheres now existed, each one home to trillions of beings from hundreds of species. The old Concord still met occasionally, but it had become ceremonial, a place for cultural exchange and historical preservation rather than political control. Wars over resources had nearly vanished. Any species that wanted help building their own stellar infrastructure received it freely. The humans asked for nothing in return except cooperation and peace. Velosh often thought about what humanity had taught the galaxy. For 11 million years, civilizations had fought over finite resources under finite stars. They had believed that survival required competition, that growth required conquest, that security required weapons. The humans had shown another way. They had looked at their prison and seen not walls but materials. They had looked at their sun and seen not a light source but an engine. They had looked at limits and seen only problems to be solved. Director Okonkwo was old now. Her hair had turned white and her movements had slowed. But her eyes still held the same calm determination they had shown during that first diplomatic meeting so many years ago. She stood beside Velosh and watched as another new star ignited in the distance. The 200th star created by human engineering. Construction drones were already swarming around it, beginning the process that would transform raw light into homes for billions. A child approached them, a young Methkai whose grandparents had fled the dying Concord decades ago. She had never known scarcity or war or fear. To her, the spheres were simply home. She tugged at Director Okonkwo's sleeve and asked a question that children had been asking since the beginning of time. What will you build next? Okonkwo smiled down at her. The expression held no pride or arrogance, only the simple satisfaction of someone who had found their purpose and fulfilled it. Everything, she said. We are going to build everything. Behind them, the sphere hummed with the energy of a captured star. Above them, new suns waited to be born. Around them, 1,000 species worked side by side, building wonders that would have seemed impossible just a century before. The humans had been locked in a cage. They had turned that cage into a seed, and from that seed had grown a garden vast enough to hold every dream any species had ever had. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly what humanity had intended all along.